Hey guys, I want to talk about some very common mistakes when it comes to vibrational work. And these are the things that I have actually realized first on myself because a lot of you are young, in your 20s, or 30s. That's also very young. um, and when I first started doing magic, as you guys know, I was a child. And the spells that I did were for school, to get friends, glamours, to, gain weight, all sorts of stuff like that. And you have some stories all over the channel about those things, and they all worked really beautifully. But when I first got into problems where my spells were not working as quickly was when I got into love spells, which obviously happened as I entered my teens and started developing crushes on boys, having relationships and breaking up and all of those stuff. And that is when I realized, hey, my spell is suddenly not working the way I wanted to. I would get some kind of movements from my spells, and I would know this is the spell because it would be like running into them all of a sudden, or something out of the ordinary basically would happen, but it wouldn't lead anywhere. It wouldn't lead to reconciliation. It wouldn't lead to communication. Nothing was happening. And that is when I discovered vibrational work. So, I'm going to tell you some of the mistakes that I did when I started implementing vibrational work with magic. And honestly, vibrational work is the most important when it comes to love spells. Other things, as you have noticed, energy cleanses, glamours, job spells, you don't really need to be in any kind of extra vibration, because the thing is that the majority of the limiting beliefs, you will have them around work, you will have them around beauty, you will have them around everything basically. But the thing is that with love, relationships, and breakups, rejections, this is where our core wounds get triggered. So, this is where vibrational work will be essential, while with other things, it will not be as important because you will not really have, most likely, majority of you guys will not really have any core wounds related to those things. And then again, you will not have a target, so you will not deal with the free will of another person. So, this is why, of course, love magic is the hardest form of magic, and it depends on a lot of factors. So, where was I? Right, vibrational work. So, this is something that I have discovered when I got into the love spells. So, when I was in my teens and I started, you know, having that kind of feelings, and I have just noticed that my magic was not magicking. Like I could see the spells are trying, that something is happening, but then it would not lead to the results that I wanted. And that is when I discovered vibrational work. And when I was a teen, that was so long ago. I'm in my 40s. So it was super long ago, and the internet was very new back then, and it wasn't nearly as it is now. You couldn't really Google stuff, you couldn't really find stuff online. There was not information as it is now. It was not the way it is now. So I relied solely on like books and also courses. I did a lot of educational courses throughout the years, and things like that. And this is also with my tarot cards, I could kind of see what I was lacking. So basically, that is when I discovered it. And like I said, information was limited back then, obviously, and it was harder to get to some informations. And a lot of the things I had to kind of figure out on my own. It wasn't like somebody could specifically tell me the steps and what to do. And therefore, vibrational work for myself took a while. Another reason why it took a while, except the lack of information back then, was that I did have a pretty strong anxious attachment when it came back then, at least when it came to romance. And every single guy I had a crush on, or an ex, or whatever it was, I had a really strong anxious attachment, which again was something that was not related to these boys. It was something that was my own, that originated from my childhood, and I did not really realize that back then. So the thing with anxious attachment is that you will always think it's about the guy, it's about the connection. This is the person that's making me anxious. It's because of the situation, because it's not defined, it's not committed, something's wrong with it, and this is what's making me anxious. But the thing is that the attachment is not coming from there. Yes, it's triggered by that, but that is not the reason why you have it, and that is not the place you should be working on, because people would now be working on that person except themselves. So that was one of the reasons why it took me long, because my anxious attachment was pretty bad, and it was really hard for me to detach. It was really hard for me to kind of release, to let go. Also, I am a Scorpio moon, and Scorpio moons, they do tend to get more attached. So if you also are a Scorpio moon, you know what I'm talking about, but you absolutely do not need to be a Scorpio moon to get attached. Um, Everybody can get really attached, unfortunately. So those were some of the reasons why it took me a long time. Some of the mistakes that I did was that I didn't really understand what all of it means. So I did not really understand what shadow work truly is. And I kind of did all of it to get the X back. I did not realize that I should be actually changing internally my vibration, my energy was supposed to be changing. I was just thinking this is a nice little process that I'm doing because I want my spell to work and I want my ex to come back. So everything was kind of, when I was doing the work, it was kind of phony, to be honest, because everything was centered around this person. And I even adjusted the work around this person. And this person was always like the centerfold of my work, and everything was kind of like placed around it, and how they would react, what they had a problem with me, what I did, how I reacted. And it's important to look at your reactions and all of that, but not in the terms of that person. So I kind of was adjusting my vibrational work towards getting this person back, and I think that a lot of people do that, clearly, because we kind of think, okay, I'm doing this to get this person back. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. But the thing is that that internal change is about you. And even though you have gotten on this journey because of this person, so basically they were, your karmic, they were the reason why you have decided to work on yourself. It doesn't mean that this is about them. It sort of is, right? Let's be honest, but it's also sort of not. So basically, I was just like aligning all the vibrational work to kind of be in alignment with that person and not myself. And I wasn't even thinking about myself um, in that sense. I was more thinking about what are my flaws that were a problem for me and this person to stay together, or for this person to come back. So I was only looking at myself and, everything about me from the perspective of that person and perspective of getting that person back. And I think that a lot of people do that. And although we absolutely should be doing that as well, because that can show us a lot of the things that we need to fix in general, our reactions. We can see a lot about ourselves just from our anxious attachment. We can learn so much about ourselves, and it's good to do that. But if you're only going to be doing it from the perspective of getting that person back, then obviously it's not really gonna be you changing your energy. It's not really gonna be what vibrational work is. So please keep that in mind, guys. And although absolutely all of the things that you have been experiencing in this connection can show a lot of stuff, and it's important to analyze it. It's also important to analyze other things about yourself. Okay. So I wanted to say something else, but I always forget. I have a whole plan in my head before I film the audio, and I think, okay, this is gonna be so good. And then just during it, I just get into a free flow and I forget some stuff I was gonna say. But basically, the point of this audio is that a vibrational work, well, what is important for vibrational work? Like, honestly, what is the most important thing for vibrational work? Which a very important part of vibrational work is shadow work. And shadow work is working on your shadows, on the parts of you that you are avoiding, parts of you that you are hiding from others, parts of you you're ashamed of, parts of you that make you feel guilty, whatever that is. If it's like some traumas from your childhood, some bad memories, some things where you wished you have done things differently, mistakes you have made, it can be anything really, but those are usually the parts that we want to hide. And those are usually the parts that we are even avoiding ourselves. We avoid thinking about it, we avoid dealing with it, and we pretend that they don't exist. But the thing is, they do exist. Everybody has a shadow. Everybody has a shadow. So I think the most important thing here is going to be courage. Yes, courage, because so many people will not want to deal with those things, will want to avoid those things. And you see, we are all a bit anxious and we are all a bit avoidant, or a lot. But we are everything. We're complex, we're complicated. So we all have these shadow parts that we want to avoid, that we want to hide, that we don't want to think about, talk about, show anybody, you know. But these parts, they do need our love, they need our understanding. And we may think about some things that we have said, done, that we are ashamed of. And very often, anxiously attached people will be later ashamed of their reactions because, as you know, I mean, majority of you guys have anxious attachment. I had it as well, and I did these things as well. Yes, I did these things as well, and then the next day I would be very ashamed of them. But the thing is, you cannot take them back. They happened, the other person saw it, and then therefore you can only be ashamed, and you shouldn't be. You should be working on, obviously, how you react and your attachment. But being ashamed of something you did is just not the way to go. So have understanding for the things you did. Understand why you did them. That's very important. Once you understand the mechanism behind it, you can see, I did not do this because I'm a bad person. I did not do this because I'm evil. I did not do this because I'm, I don't know, whatever what you're thinking you are. But I did it because of this, this, and this. because I felt like this, and this. And that's very important because you have to deal with your shadow. And that does take courage because nobody wants to do it, let's be honest. And I think that a lot of people that are were my clients, I think that a good portion of them was avoiding this part of vibrational work. Yeah, because I know that I was in the beginning as well, and I was just like, okay, I just want the sex back. Ooh. And I did write some things about myself, like I react like this because of that, but I wasn't really dealing with it, and there was still a lot of shame around it. So you need to let go of that shame and guilt, understand why it happened and why it shouldn't happen again and why it will not happen again. And that is that. You have to be brave, guys. You have to be brave to look at yourself, your mistakes, your traumas, all of it. And you absolutely can do this. So I hope this made sense. I hope this helped somebody. I know that vibrational work can be tricky, but you have so much information on the channel. You can always get coaching. But I will just say that even though coaching clients are always really satisfied and a lot of things, will be more, I guess, clear for them. It's important that obviously after the coaching they continue the work. So it's not something that will just, okay, clear everything up and then they don't need to do anything ever again. So, whichever method you prefer with help or by yourself, the only thing that really matters is consistency. That's going to be the key. Don't give up. You can't have results overnight. You can't change your energy overnight. It's a process, it takes time, but it's going to happen sooner than you think.